Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Matter. I'm Talking Skritt. I'm your host, Jim, and just banners, just funk banners. That's really the only thing people care about with the recent balance, the balancing the balance patch balance post is banners.
Hey, I thought banners were dead.
They're trying to resuscitate them.
Oh, okay.
But before we get into that, and also, by the way, apparently Chronomancer's got something. Celeste might fly in from another country to smack me for saying Chronomancer's got a little bit of something. But, dude, Emperor, enjoy your party, and Celeste, enjoy your Denny's with wife. So also say hi to wife for me. But before we get into all that and all the other stuff that will probably come up in after show about Denny's and parties and wives, say hello to my co-host Arlie.
Hi.
I realize I completely forgot the whole
Whatever.
MMORPG and all your other
Whatever.
stuff, but okay.
It's fine.
That's fine. That's fine. We're trying to keep it. We're kind of keep it short, because now okay. So we had a tiny little balance update preview for the second. Drop this in chat. This was posted Wednesday. They did some small updates to Mesmer. Great Sword and Sword got PvE power coefficient bonuses. Literally exactly what they did for Ranger in the big balance patch that came out. Chronomancer trait, improved alacrity. Now this is weird. It now also increases critical strike damage by 10% while you have alacrity. This is not plus ferocity. This is a multiplier to total damage dealt.
Okay.
So if you would deal 1,000 damage on a crit, I know that's very low, but if you would deal 1,000 damage on a crit, with alacrity, that is 1,100 damage. So this is a 10% multiplier to total critical strike damage, which makes it far more powerful than just giving ferocity.
Yeah.
If you build ferocity, I think is the takeaway here, is you actually have to, in order to make this trait more worth it, you actually have to have ferocity in your gear.
Did they explain in there why they did that at all?
No.
Okay.
Hang on a second. As well as a significant damage increase added to the Chronomancer's improved alacrity trait that will increase the performance of both damage and boons support Chronomancer builds. I don't know about that, because if you don't have ferocity in your kit, and that's the one thing Celeste was telling me about earlier, is the remember when they said for the big balance patch that they would be giving people the 5% crit bonus like extra in their trait lines? That went into Virtuoso.
Of course.
Which means that it's not usable for anything but Virtuoso. And critical strike chance is apparently something that's really difficult for Mesmers to get a hold of. Because I was actually watching a Teapot video on some of this stuff, and he was saying that, like, even back in the days of classic in like vanilla Guild Wars 2, Mesmers were usually primarily rocking Assassin's gear because they couldn't get the precision, instead of primarily Berserker's gear.
They were like the one exception.
That seems to be the case, which is odd. So I'm hoping, since this is a balanced preview, that we'll see a little more work done on Mesmer, like moving that 5% crit to a baseline, to a core trait line, because I don't think Virtuoso needs more access to damage for free. That, from what I've been hearing.
I mean...
Other than that, like, just the damage buffs are damage buffs. I mean, the, Virtuoso already has... Oh, that's the redo. Yeah, they don't... I feel like they don't know what they're doing with Elementalist and Mesmer. At times. Like, I don't know. But, the Greatsword had a pretty sizable, buff. The Greatsword auto attack spatial surge does more damage the farther you are away from the target, much like longbow for Ranger. That has gone up from a maximum of... The maximum damage multiplier was 1.005. Which was weird. To have 100.5% of your power.
Yeah.
But now it's 1.1 at maximum. And the minimum is now 0.8 power coefficient.
Okay.
Up from 0.69. So just the floor of greatsword damage has increased greatly. Mind Stab, which is the 3, I want to say. The big AoE went from 1.0 to 1.8. And then the first hit from Phantasmal Berserker, the initial strike of the multi-strike that the Phantasmal Berserker does, went from 0.4 to 1.2.
Okay.
Which is big damage. Like, that's a lot. But then again, I think the old Phantasmal Berserker, the initial strike is nothing. Well, the initial strike is nothing now. Moving up to 120% of your power coefficient seems like it would be pretty solid. Then again, like, I feel like that 0.4 damage coefficient is back from the days when the Phantasms would just stick around. And you would just summon 3 Phantasmal Berserkers and let them do their spins constantly. But...
Spin to win!
Yeah. It's actually nothing. The initial strike is the throw your sword at it. Oh shit, that's right. They got rid of the skill that just summons the Phantasmal Berserker. That's the one, that's the 2 skill now. The 2 skill... Hang on, I need to... See, this is how poorly I fucking know Mesmer. I'm probably still going off of Mirror Blade. Throws an illusion blade. No, that's a clone. Phantasmal Berserker is the 4. Oh no, it's a throw. It's not just a summon. Okay, throw an illusionary greatsword at your foe, removing boons. Okay. So it's just the initial strike damage from the throw your sword thing. Okay. I got it. But I appreciate it. I don't want to spend, like I said, I'm trying to keep things concise here so we're not in the weeds of it. But, like, okay, yeah, throw sword, target hits, it removes... I didn't know they had changed that. Again, most of I still thought that, like, Celesti disabused me of the notion that Greatsword 3 still stripped boons. That's been gone for literal years. Oh my god, it is awful. The baseline damage of it is only 161.
Wow.
Weapons...
Do they like not want people to use greatsword or something? Like,
I don't know.
I don't understand.
Like, it obviously them buffing it means that, like, they kind of want to, but, like...
Right.
I don't know, it just sounds like they don't really know where they're going with, power Mesmer, other than Virtuoso pew-pewing with daggers.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's put the Great in Greatsword again. Make Greatsword great again. MGGA doesn't really have the same ring to it, though.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Power Mesmer uses great, I would assume, because there's only... Yeah. I would assume Power Virtuoso uses it, but... Power Virtuoso doesn't need buffs. They need to buff Core Mesmer and Chrono. Like, I don't know. Excuse me. Okay, so... The one thing that I actually did want to talk about that I think got a stupid amount of backlash, to be entirely honest. I was...
Stupid.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't say stupid. Just a disproportionate amount of backlash. That's a better word for it.
There you go.
A disproportionate amount of backlash was the banner changes. Now, quote ArenaNet. We badly missed the mark with banner changes in the June update. We've gone back to the drawing board to be bolder with changes, add more powerful utility, and make banners easier to use. Each banner will now do its most powerful effects immediately on use and have a much shorter base cooldown of 30 seconds.
Cool.
To adjust situations where it felt the warrior needed to continually adjust the positions of their banners, pulsing boons are now granted in an increased duration per pulse, but over a shorter amount of time. It will no longer
Okay.
be necessary to stand around the banner for its full duration to upkeep banner boons. Duration will stack up more quickly. The reduced cooldowns allow warriors to the use of the powerful on-drop effects frequently. The radius and duration of banners has been reduced to better reflect the more focused role. The previous ability for banners to grant quickness to allies has been moved to the doubled standards trait.
Okay.
Okay, so overall, the actual numbers going on. Recharge reduced from 60 to 30, except for Battle Standard, which is the Elite Revival one. Animations changed. Cast time reduced by 0.2 seconds, except for Battle Standard.
Okay.
The light combo field radius reduced from 600 to 360. Combo field duration reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. The pulsing boon radius is now also 360. Once dropped, banners last for 15 seconds and can no longer be picked up.
Yay.
Yes, absolutely. Banners no longer grant quickness on drop by default, except for Banner of Tactics and PvE only. So that is the quickness caveat that they carved out for a lot of stuff. Doubled standards. This trait now grants quickness on banner drop in addition to its other effects. Clarified in description that boon duration increase applies only to the pulsing boons and not any other boons granted on the initial banner drop. Now, this is the thing that I think is really cool. All banner skills, except for Battle Standard, have been reworked. They now grant different effects when dropped, depending on the banner.
Oh.
Banner of Defense now grants Barrier and Aegis to allies on summon.
Okay.
Banner of Tactics applies Stability and Super Speed, plus Quickness in PvE. Banner of Discipline damages and applies Bleeding and Cripple. It is
damages?
Yes.
The banner damages?
Yes, when you drop the banner, it's a targeted AoE that does damage.
Okay.
This skill no longer creates a combo field, but acts as a blast finisher instead.
Okay.
Banner of Strength damages and dazes enemies, also now a blast finisher and not a combo field. And Battle Standard. This is the elite. Battle Standard's damage multiplier has been increased from 1.5 to 4.0. In PvE only, it is also no longer a field and is now a blast finisher.
Okay.
But Battle Standard is now a big damage skill. 400% of your power.
Wait, 400% of your power?
It went from a 1.5 power coefficient to a 4.0 power coefficient.
Okay. So,
yeah, it did a big boom. Which kind of makes sense when it puts that big graphic on the ground when it drops. It's it always felt a little lackluster when that popped in, so now it's doing damage. The one thing that I think will be necessary is changes to the models, I think.
A little bit.
Because, having the Banner of Discipline, Strength, and Battle Standard be look maybe more like spears. Oh, I caught you taking a picture of an animal.
Yeah. Butters is asleep on the floor in a very adorable spot, and I was like, I have to catch that before he moves. Sorry.
Make sure to post that in general chat so people see the adorableness of Butters. The pulsing boons have changed to the following: Banner of Defense gives regen, Banner of Tactics gives resistance, Banner of Discipline gives fury, Banner of Strength gives might for 10 seconds, 2 stacks at a time, and then Battle Standard is fury, swiftness, and might.
Okay.
Now, the only problem I had, I remember when we talked about it on stream, I think it was a Tuesday night, we were looking at all these changes when the first big patch came through. And the biggest problem I had with banners was the tick time on the banners.
Well, I think it depended too, because I don't remember which banner it was, but there was one banner I was playing on where the tick time was too long and the duration was too short. So you're like...
It was discipline.
Okay, it was discipline.
Because all of the banners had a tick time of 3 seconds. And the banner, the baseline with 0 concentration, the fury duration was 1 second.
Right.
So...
Yeah. You barely got it before you lost it.
Now, I kind of understand where they were going with that, is, if you're going to be a person providing boons, build concentration. But the baseline boon duration on that would be way too low, I think, for concentration to really have much to do with.
Yeah.
So I think that was the problem I had there. And then the previous effect of the banners made it feel like if I am in the AoE of the banner, I should get the effect of the banner.
Right.
So that with the new banner paradigm, I didn't like it as much. Because it just didn't feel like the banner had as much effect. I still agree with them getting rid of all the unique auras, 100%. I have no problems with them removing the unique aura buffs because it makes it easier for them to balance. Making the banners damaging gives an opportunity for power and condi specs for warriors to bring a banner and also provide a little bit of extra support. So I could totally see I think Condi Berserker is still a thing. Throwing around Discipline. Because, bleeding and cripple, and then it applies Fury. So that'd be solid to add to everything going on. The one thing that I do hope is that they have gone down to at least a 2-second tick time on the banners.
Yeah.
Because they certainly feel weird if there's a gap in their boon application.
Didn't it say in that it was still 3-second tick time?
I did not see. It didn't say anything about the tick time.
Oh, for some reason I thought I heard you read that.
Cooldown is now 30 seconds. Cast time reduced. Combo fields are shorter. Boon radius, pulsing boon radius is reduced. They all last for 15 seconds, so you have 50% uptime of banners if you cast them perfectly. Yeah. But that's if it's not at least 2 seconds, Banner of Tactics will have fall off on resistance.
Yeah.
Because everything else you have full overlap. I mean, it's not as great with Might because Might is stacking intensity, not duration. But
right. You said people were upset about these changes?
The initial banner changes. People were wildly upset.
Yeah, I remember that. I thought you meant that people were upset about these changes, and I was like, I feel like overall these are good.
I haven't seen any in the threads. I have seen a whole bunch of people wanting Mechanist to get nerfed.
Well,
which I think Mechanist needs nerfed.
Yeah. Literally, I have to just say this. Every time I join a group to do a meta or anything, there's always 10, 12, 13 mechanists.
And I think one of the other problems, and this was in a Teapot video recently, is support mechanist is apparently very brain dead.
Oh, really?
Where it's just you walk into combat and press your buttons and support happens around you. Whereas he was comparing that to support Tempest. Where, you have to, get into the different elements and have things.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem with it, 7-bit, is that it is incredibly easy, and is thus... The problem is not so much Mechanist in a vacuum, it's how it's affecting the rest of the game.
Right.
Mechanist is pushing out a lot of other things because it by itself is easy.
Yeah.
So if you can obtain 90% of what other classes do
without trying
with
really
half the effort, then it's a problem for balance.
Yeah.
Because then why would anyone ever play anything else and then things get boring? No, I completely agree with you that it is okay for easier to play classes to exist. This is the conversation we were having in the Guild Wars 2 general chat.
Yeah, there should be variety in a mix, but you have to balance that.
I am totally okay with there being easier specs to play. I mean, look at me. I was playing a 5-signet warrior for the longest time. But
you have to balance it in that. So, general, usually easier classes to play, their ceiling will be usually somewhere around halfway-ish of the harder classes, more or less. so that if you're putting in the extra effort, you do actually see gains from that because you're doing more than something where you just smash the buttons. Basically.
Well, yeah. The example that 7-Bit brought up when we were talking about Elementalist a few days ago in the Discord was Core Condi Engineer during initial Heart of Thorns raiding. Oh,
yeah.
It's the child.
Pupper!
No.
His ears are so fluffy.
They are. They're very soft.
I wish I could touch them.
I wish you could touch them too and not suffer horrible, horrible allergic reactions.
Yeah.
Are you being good?
He's like, I'm always good.
He is not always good. Sometimes he's a little gremlin.
Yeah, but he thinks he's always good.
Probably. Saying nature nerfed the pupper ears to make them... Are you done coughing?
No.
He's so soft. We're lucky. His coat is growing in very silky and smooth.
Yes.
But
show derailed.
Show derailed. Puppy show derailed. I'm not talking about it being on top of the... Yeah. Ham.
Ham?
I don't know what the acronym is. QB is Quick Brand, so that's Firebrand doing quickness builds. Yeah. Like, it's one of those things where there are certain builds that, for certain specs, that are so effective. Heal Alack Mechanist. Okay, got it. They are so effective at what they do that even though they wouldn't necessarily be at the top of it, you are spending less effort to get similar amounts of results. So, yeah. Like, I play Quick Brand just because I wanted to... It's more of a Condi Quick Brand. It's in Seraph gear. Just because I think the build is fun. I'm not necessarily great at it, and I'm more focused on dealing damage, and all of my boons and healing are incidental. But, like... that's the problem, is like Arlie's talking about going into meta events, and there are just so many mechanists.
Yep.
So it's getting to the point where it just... Is there a problem? I mean, it was kind of like when you'd go into the Labyrinth back during Classic Guild Wars 2, and you would see people just running around with Guardians, with staves. Staves? Staves. Staffs?
Staffs. No!
That's definitely not it.
Oh my gosh.
But for people who aren't aware, the Guardian auto attack on Guardian Staff 1 used to be just a single skill, not an attack chain, that just did a cone of damage. It was very quick. It was called the loot stick because it was very easy to tag stuff.
Yep.
It didn't do awful damage, but that was basically the only reason people ran around with Guardian Staff in big meta events. But like that's the point, is like Mechanist, maybe not necessarily nerfed, but the skill floor might need brought up.
Yeah. Or do you mean the floor brought up? Because I don't think that would really affect the thing. I think ceiling needs to be reduced a little bit, or... Well,
no, the floor, because the input skill needs to be brought up. So, like, the effort you put in... He says it needs balance, but does it? Doesn't making it do less... I kind of have to agree with Celesti, is I don't mind the output. The output is not the problem. The problem is that it is entirely too brain dead in comparison. Brain dead is awful. I shouldn't be using brain dead. It does too much for the effort going in comparison to other classes that are in the same role.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that, like, get rid of the easiness, but, like, it's too easy is the point. That, like, I'm running around on Power Mechanist, and I'm literally just with the build. I rock up, I hit one, I don't have to hit any of my skills, the mech does all the work, and I do a shit ton of damage.
I think we're coming at it from two different places then. So you're saying you want it to be less easy, make it a little harder.
Yes.
My thought is it's fine for it to be super easy, but make it a little bit less effective for that easiness.
And it's one of those. It's you have to pick which angle to. I don't mind either one, to be entirely honest. Read the second. Hold on. Now people aren't playing mech because it's not powerful, and something else is. It's the same. Well, that's the whole thing with balance. Is like I'm totally. I don't mind two classes being capable of doing the same output. I'm saying that the input from the player is the outlier for mech. Hang on. I fail to see why that is bad, though. You say it needs... I need to just read this out loud. Doesn't making it do less than another spec just repeat the problem in reverse. Now, people aren't playing mech because it's not powerful, and something else is. It's the same problem, just swapping the build. Why is it not okay for two builds to be equally effective but one take more skill than the other? Some people like the required skill, and that's what's fun for them. Why is input being different being bad? It's not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the degree of input. It's the delta in difference of inputs that I take issue with. When I when I play the build, like when I play Arlie's Weaver build, I put a lot more effort into thinking about where my buttons are going and the skills that I'm using than when I play, say, my Willbender. Like, when I play my Willbender, it's F1, and then I press my sword skills until the thing is dead, and then I target something else, I press F1, and I just press all my buttons until the thing is dead. Like, and then I don't think my Willbender, like, I wanted that for Guardian, because Guardian has an awful lot of, like, all of the previous Guardian builds, you were thinking about what you were doing to everyone around you, not just the enemies. With Willbender, I wanted a little less brain bandwidth because I just wanted to be a selfish I do damage spec. Now, I do have my support build, like my quick brand is a support build on my Guardian, and I go to that when I want to go to that. With my Mechanist, I literally just look at something and press 1 with my rifle, and so many things happen, so many traits fire, like the rockets from Aim Assist Rocket, the 3 rockets hit very quickly, and then the orbital bombardment comes down. It's so much happens with so little input that that is the problem that I'm having, is the delta between input and output is massive. That is my problem with Mechanist. I'm not saying that having easy specs in the game is bad. I'm not saying that... What does that mean one should do... I don't care if one does better than the other. I would say that for DPS or for support, everything should be roughly within the same window. I'm saying that, like, okay, you've got input, and here there's the bar of input, like actions per minute or something, are here, and like all the other classes are like, and this is just me talking out of my ass because I don't know what the actual actions per minute for different builds in the game are, but like the problem is, like, everything's up here and Mechanist is down here. That's the problem that I have.
I was gonna say the real problem with there being specs that are extremely easy and are just as effective as something you have to work really hard at is over time everybody will be playing the easy class. You'll find 1 or 2 people playing the harder, but for the most part, players drift to the thing that is the least difficult. Like, why work harder than you need to accomplish the same bit? It's why you have to have a little bit, like, you can't have too much, because then the people who really just prefer the easier style can't be effective. But you need to have some gap between the really hard, complicated specs and the super easy one. There needs to be a little bit of give there.
I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it does make the game very boring to see nothing but the same group of the same thing. Which is why I stopped playing my my Hollowsmith in PvP, because every time I saw a Hollowsmith, it did not matter. It did not matter what the build was. That Hollowsmith would do the exact same thing. You're explaining what the issue is, and I 100% understand. Because it makes the game boring. it makes it visually boring. It also is bad on a development side. It matters. I mean, it does in a meta way, 7-bit. It does matter as a player, because if so many people gravitate towards the easy thing to play, everything else goes out of whack on balance. And then you suddenly have Retribution Paladins using Avenging Wrath and Divine Shield at the same time with no damage reduction. Like damage output reduction. For people who aren't aware, right before Burning... Was it at the end of Burning Crusade, before Wrath of the Lich King? Yes, because it was on the island with Sunwell. Paladins got a huge overhaul because they actually then decided that Retribution Paladins should be allowed to do DPS. There was a skill there was a skill called Divine Shield, which was complete immunity to damage, and then there was a skill called Avenging Wrath, which was 50% damage increase. And despite all the Paladins saying, like, hey, stop this, you could use both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still player choice. Hang on. People get funneled into one thing. Warframe is having issues with the meta AoE. If you can't beat them, join them. Yes. It's still player choice. Yes, but as a DM, I think you would get the 7-bit if everybody played the same cracked build. Like, what was the name of the stupid kobold build?
Oh, God.
From 3.5. I remember it was a named character because it got super popular at, like, cons. But it was this really cheesy build because you were a small character and some other kind of confluence of abilities. But, like, if everybody plays that thing, it becomes very boring. It's one of the reasons... another example is people are too caught up in the meta. As a DM, I balance my games based on what the players are playing, not based on... Right.
Yeah, but that's a game that you can make adjustments in the fly, like making adjustments like that in an MMO. Like, if everybody, like, literally, if the entire player base started playing Mechanist, then would it be right for them to just say, okay, everybody's playing Mechanist, we're going to balance the rest of the game around everybody playing Mechanist? Whereas the few people who prefer not to play Mechanist would then be screwed. Yeah, that's not how it works on this kind of scale. This is a different kind of scale than an individual, like, game, like a D&D game.
Yeah, like
the scale fucks it over.
Yeah, you can, because you also have in like any kind of tabletop RPG, you also have people being able to talk to the DM and be like, I don't know, like, I don't want to ruin people's fun. Like, I'm gonna say that right now. I don't want people to feel bad playing something and to have something great and then have it go away. People want to play what they want to play at the skill level they want.
That's not true, though. If one thing is super, super easy and gets just as good of a return, people will be pressured into playing that instead of the other things because it's easier and more guaranteed. That's the entire problem with the meta in general, is pressuring people to play into the highest returners. When you add in the fact that something is super easy and it gets such good results, that pressure will be increased a lot more.
It's much like the time back when Reapers were told they couldn't do DPS.
Yeah.
Like, people were literally being kicked out of, like, they joined a fractal group and they were like, oh, you're playing Reaper? Boot.
Yep.
Like, that's the opposite side of the coin, where it is seen as a negative to play a certain spec. Right. And I'm saying that, like, people wanting to play easy is not a bad thing. People wanting to play hard is not a bad thing. The problem is the perception therein. Like, when I see the easy, like, when I play the easy thing, when I want to play a build, I think there was a few times people were talking about, like, joke builds. It was like, I just want to auto attack. Like, I think there was even a few build-offs that I saw years ago on the subreddit where it's just like, how can I load as many passive effects into my auto attack and just walk up to something, press 1, and literally just play through the entire, like, open world like that? And there's a challenge in that, too. Like, building a spec like that. But there's that, too. Finding like-minded players, LFG stuff isn't the solution. Our LFG tool in Guild Wars 2 is downright awful. with some very glaring issues. But like, when one spec out of 36 becomes so wildly popular, there is something out of line with it. Well, do we not pick our classes to play roles? Like, we do the same thing here. It's just not a hard trinity in Guild Wars 2.
It's like how you want to do the thing, basically.
Yeah. Like, the people who are straight up... There are very few straight up healers. I would argue you've got Druid and Tempest, and I think Revenant? I don't know how Revenant is doing with Ventari changes.
Yeah, like Tempest does really well in the healer role, but it's always kind of... Because when I played Tempest, I approached it with a completely different mindset, so it always, like, is weird for me to think of a healer Tempest, even though that is what it's really good at. It's amazing. Kalesi, that's a good point, but still, like what I was saying before, there are, in every meta join, and maybe I just have weird luck, I see far more Mechanists than I see anything else. Like, one of the things I do every time I join a meta group, because we're always building the group before the meta starts. So there's a little bit of time where we gather up and we all enter the map together. Where we're just sitting there, and I go through and I look and I count because I'm curious, what the balance is.
She does. She tells me how many elementals she sees every time.
Yeah. I'm always curious mostly about elementalists because that's what I play, but particularly a Reaver. And I never see Catalyst. I don't think I've ever seen a Catalyst in one meta group. But there's always way more Mechanists than there is anything else at this point. And it seems like I really should keep like a running tab of this, just because it feels like since the expansion came out, it is increasing week to week the amount of Mechanists I see in these groups.
I disagree with that sentiment, 7-Bit, because the players will always be capable of iterating through the output faster than developers can develop and balance. So if we see a horde of Mechanists, it's because somebody somewhere figured out that they had high output with low input, or they are just wildly effective, and then that happened. Like, when you're developing, like, in vanilla there were always more Ellies and because elementalists, like, people wanted to do the damages, and elementalists back then did the damages because of weird hitbox issues and multi-hit AoEs. That was a design problem more with the mechanics of combat than anything, because you could cheese Meteor Storm to drop all of the meteors in a tight location. And the same thing with Frostbow, and that's why they nerfed Frostbow into the dirt. Not in PvE they didn't. I don't know. But like, I keep hearing about the output, and this is just me, like, not even digging into. This is just me seeing, like, in map chats and, like, some random stuff on the internet, like a Teapot video that I randomly watched while I was waiting for, like, I needed something to listen to during work one day. Like, it really truly sounds to me like the output is very high. And my experience with Mechanist is that the output is very high for very little input. Like, I haven't done a single thing looking into any kind of power DPS Mechanist builds. It's just the stuff that I had equipped, and I was just like, yes, these traits seem good. Now, when I say these traits seem good, I picked literally all of the power damage traits that because they have power, condi, and support are the three rows, the through rows on Mechanist. And I'm a 5 signet mechanist, and all of the. I'm not taking it as fact, Celeste. It's just like if it keeps happening over and over again. Right? No, I get that. I'm not talking about anybody as gospel. It's more just a kind of like if you see the through lines, there might be something to it. If many people say one thing, there might be a grain of something to it. My looking at some of the Mechanist support capabilities, it does seem like an awful lot of the stuff just kind of happens around them. Mm-hmm. So as long as the Mechanist is with the group, they do things and it just happens around them. So it's not really a like my impression therein is that it's I press my buttons and the support happens, not I see the situations and I have to press this button at this time. If that makes sense.
Or make choices about it.
Right.
Or whatnot.
Now, like, that was the thing when I was playing... can I ask where you guys get your info then? I mean, there's got to be a negative truth to something. Does it get blown out of proportion? I think in this case, it's a lot of loud voices that say something so everyone believes it. If you look at the numbers in PvP, it might need a nerf, but in PvP, it's middle of the pack. See, but that's when I look at what Arlie is saying with the wild number of people that are playing Mechanist, which Mechanist is probably very much more visible because of the mech.
Well, but like I look at the icons.
Yeah, you look at the icons, but I have been noticing when I've been running around when it's just myself that it's just like, holy shit, there's a lot of Jade mechs.
Oh, yeah.
So it's, in PvE, it might be middle of the pack, but clearly there's something to
going
the...
on.
Now, granted, it could just be people being like, holy shit, I have a golem.
Yeah.
Which, I'll admit, that was me.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know, like... This could have just been a whole lot of, like, the possibilities are, we have a whole bunch of people who would play NG if they... Wild number of people in challenge modes right now isn't extremely high. It's out of ham providing open world survive. Yeah. I don't know anything about challenge modes. Like, I haven't been paying attention to that.
Yeah.
I will fully admit. But I don't know. Like, I keep hearing that, like, I'll have to look into it for the output. So, like, oh, well, in a meta, there's a bunch of mechs. Isn't really... Well, it gauges the popularity of the spec for people. Like, I'm not trying to say that, like, that is an indication of numbers. Mm-hmm. To say that there is a lot of a single spec in a meta. Like, that I have zero idea on the numbers because I know exactly why I ended up failing the one Dragon's End that I did at 0.5%, and it's because the same thing that always happens to large-scale meta events in Guild Wars 2. Dead people that will not waypoint.
Yeah. That one's particularly frustrating because they give you one close by to, like...
Yeah. But this has gone wildly far afield of what I was expecting. And I was thinking about just keeping it to an hour-long show, which we're in the last 10 minutes of. How many demon hunters were there in Legion? Well, that's because people, like, again... is it because demon hunters were broken, or is it because people were like, holy shit, I want a demon hunter?
So that's also another thing. Like, there were a lot of demon hunters just running around general, but there were far fewer demon hunters in, like, raiding and stuff like that, too. Like, it's...
He's still a little small,
and that was
it.
never a spec where you just blindly smashed buttons and did things.
Hold on 1 second.
What? Oh my goodness!
Dog in a bag.
One little ear sticking out.
Yeah. Oscar. No, he's pretty stuck down in there. He's still not quite big enough for it.
Yeah.
It throws me off. How big
Magni was a large boy.
Yeah. Oh, look at his face. Is he going for a trip?
I think Chris is just trying to get him used to it.
Okay.
Because when we do go on big hikes, we want to take him with. and we want him to get used to that, so that if he gets tired, we stick him in the backpack and
right.
go.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like, so I kind of missed your, because I was distracted by a dog in a bag. Was there a problem with Demon Hunter balance?
No.
No?
I was going to say, the thing is there were a lot of people making Demon Hunter alts and running around in it, which is just always anytime there's a new class, race,
I remember
whatever,
the Death Knights, yeah.
Yep, that happens. But there's never been a point where the Demon Hunters pushed out other classes for things in balance.
Okay.
The problem is often having a Demon Hunter at all, because they bring a pretty substantial buff by themselves, so you always want at least one, and sometimes you can't have that. So it's always been like, that's Demon Hunters didn't ever push anybody out of anything else.
Yeah.
It was just, you know,
trying to find that website that had the like the graphs of people submitting parses for raids. I think balance and the way the community looks at this is way off base. Did you know right now the Warrior has the highest DPS in the game by a big margin? No! I had no idea.
I don't really care, to be honest.
But according to Reddit, the community, well, that's because people are still so very focused on banners.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people are so stuck on banners. They're not, like, the new banner iteration, the one that, and to bring things back to the previous comment I mentioned, like with the balance patch, them apologizing to say we badly missed the mark on banner changes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
think that's quite
know.
Accurate. I think, honestly, if they had just fixed the duration and pulse relationship, it would have been fine.
Yeah. And also, like, Reddit is, as a community, like, Reddit as a system, like, it is incentivizing an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Because you have to get the upvotes. Like, it gamifies saying the thing that gets you the most... Oh, yeah, absolutely. NG rifle is great. Hold this. Hold this.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Goober. Yeah, I fully agree. Rifle on Engineer is a fantastic update to a weapon. I love it. It's a fantastic... Like, making it synergize more with traits, 100% great. Hi. Yes, no, you're stuck here. No, I was told to hold you. You're going to stay here.
Aww.
Puppy hugs.
They're so cute.
But the question is, like, I know I don't think of balance like the community does. 100%, because I don't think the banners are all that bad as they stand. No, you didn't derail the show. I mean, we were talking about balance updates, and, like, they're just previewing the changes for 2 specs here for what's going to come out on, or for 2 classes here that's going to come out on the 2nd. They still haven't given us a Corgi, Deo. ArenaNet has not given us a Corgi, and I have many gigabytes of pictures of Corgis that I could provide to them if they need to for modeling. The camera's going places.
I was gonna say, I don't know if I can get a good shot of him. Damn it.
Oh.
My cord's not long enough.
Oh, no.
He's sitting in the chair like people.
You mean your cat isn't people?
He is people. He's just, particularly peopling.
Magni used to get himself up into bed and then pull the covers over himself.
Yeah. Aww.
But yeah, 7-bit, you're not derailing, and honestly, I love talking about the minutia of this because there's so many ways to come at balance just from a point of view, like just from the points of view here. Mm-hmm. Like, let the players choose what they want. Honestly, I'm not surprised that that's what you say, 7-bit, as a professional game runner. Mm-hmm. Because that's your thing. Yeah, talking Skritt staying on track is just... Like, making sure people can do what they want is amazing, and is...
I was going to say...
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't think we even do show notes anymore, so there's not really ever a rail to begin with.
I had a rail the one time, and then you were like, "Oh, did I not tell you I was moving today?"
Oh, right.
And then I just I closed the notepad. It's like, "Do you want to save?" No.
No. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly, Calexity. And that's what I think is the problem. Is they keep saying we want Chrono to have more power. Like we want Chrono to be better. Like to have power Chrono, and they keep handing the buffs to you and Virtuoso at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, 7-bit. Don't worry. I loved the conversation today. I really did, and I feel like I did not properly articulate my point. So that's on me. Because I feel like there needs to be an upper bound to output. Ooh. And no, you're stuck on the desk. Don't yell at me. There needs to be an upper bound for output and a lower bound for input. Like, yeah. I do not think, and I'm not saying that there are any specs in the game right now that do this, I don't think a spec should be able to be, like, even 75% competitive with, like, raiding DPS builds with just auto-attacking.
Yeah.
I agree with you for the most part that, people want these really tightly balanced games, and an MMO is not that place. A fighting game is that place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a fighting game needs tight balance. I think that's really about anything that's, super competitive would need tight balance. I don't think Guild Wars 2 is that game. So, and this is in the broad field of the input-output spectrum. The feeling I'm getting from looking at support Mechanist is that the input is too low, but that's not necessarily me saying that I want it to be super complicated to play. I wouldn't know about that because I haven't had a chance to play Elden Ring yet. I'm told that it exists on the PS4, but I feel like that's inviting disaster to try and play. Don't chew on my headset. Your sister does that already.
Yeah. But I would argue 7-bit also that the builds in Elden Ring that require less skill, rather than the difference being it would probably be more skill, less skill. That's the difference. Whereas the difference we're talking about here is more, which is fine, but it also just depends on the game that you want, what you want out of the game, basically.
Yeah. That, and I also think comparing Elden Ring to an MMO is probably not the greatest.
Nah.
Because,
well, I mean, really, any RPG to an MMO, it's completely any not MMO really to an MMO. It's a completely different scale for everything.
Elden Ring is technically a single. It's much the same as any Souls game is a single player game. You can summon in allies that are other players. Other players can invade your game. Or you can just play in offline mode, which is what I do for literally all Souls games, because I want the story, not the PvP.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't people are arguing for super tight tuning of balance, and I agree with you, 7-bit, in that is what leads to homogenization. 100%. I agree. Trying to adhere to a very tight balance window is bad. Right, yeah, Deo, you're not competing with anyone else in Elden Ring. Unless it's meta competitions like speed clears or build clears or something. That's it. You're not versus another player unless you actively choose to go into PvP zones in a Souls game. But I don't know, and that's part of me is even arguing with myself on wanting the skill floor is why shouldn't people be able to do something that feels easy and then also feel awesome about it? But in the same way that it was a Josh Strife Hayes video, and he talked about how MMOs are shared suffering.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Do I want to become... Oh, thank you, Deo.
Yeah. I was
Good for you,
literally
Deo.
just moving my mouse.
Right. Like, so the problem with the competition is still meta. You don't need offline mode to play Bloodborne. I still play offline mode. Mostly because I don't want to see the messages everywhere.
Oh, but those are some of the best.
It's just annoying, and
I mean, some are stupid. My favorite thing is coming across the gravestones where people died and like seeing the last few seconds before they died. That always amuses me.
I don't know. I just don't like seeing all the gravestones and the messages, and so I play offline.
Okay.
But with like I'm even battling with myself here, because if you get high output for low input, that also means that people fall off faster. I was drinking water, so I can't really give a toast, but Sospero says Slanta. My pronunciation was awful there, so I apologize for that, but like...
I was gonna say I finished my drink.
Toasts.
Sad.
Gatorade, H2O. But hidden item ahead, or illusory wall.
My favorite, I think my favorite about the ways people have died, and now we're really going far afield, is I see it, I'm like, oh, that sucks, and then I take a step forward and the same thing happens to me. Like, those kind of things are hilarious to me.
Yeah. But like, I'm arguing with myself in that, like, I want people to feel good, to feel cool, but at the same time, if you don't... It was the same problem I had with my Revenant. So, like, I level boosted my Revenant because they introduced the level boosts with Heart of Thorns. I don't play my Revenant. I don't know how to play my Revenant. I don't understand a lot of the synergies with Revenant skills because I didn't level a Revenant. I didn't gain an attachment to the character by level boosting it. So if you step into a build and it's easy, it becomes a ticking clock. So, like, people fall off if the game becomes too easy. It's been made in balance with the assumption that is true. You know what, Suspero? I kind of like I was struggle bussing when I played my engineer for the large part because I wanted Juggernaut to be a thing. I wanted to be able to walk into combat with a flamethrower. And I just... This was your first character? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I think my engineer is relatively old on my account, but I can't remember.
Engineer is what I boosted with my Heart of Thorns.
Okay.
And I never really ever play her.
Then I guess I just didn't look it up, 7-bit. I need to look up a better flamethrower build, because I love the flamethrower. I just wish, like, the big gas mask you got from Season 1 rewards didn't look so awful on Char.
Should we talk about getting old?
I actually want to save that because we're at an hour.
Oh, okay.
And since we've already gone through a whole lot of discussion about balance, I don't think we'll be all that awful next time. 7-bit, can you screenshot that build and drop that in the builds channel for the Discord?
Yeah.
Because I would love to see what you had running for that. Hey, there's nothing wrong with American whiskey, Sospero. More power to you. But I do think I should cut the show there.
Okay.
So, because I have just a ridiculous amount of laundry that I need to go through. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is outro time. Arlie, where can they find you?
You can find me at Arlie82 on Twitter and Instagram. Yay!
Huzzah! And you can find my face on Twitter at MalthanusMMO and also in the community Discord. Link is in the description. And then Tuesdays and Thursday, I didn't stream at all Tuesday and Thursday this past week because I just was not... It was not a great week. I was very tired for a large part of the week. I had to work Thursday, so my brain was just not in it. And then I had to go into work early on Friday, so I didn't really want to stay up streaming Thursday night, which was not great either. But usually Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, Talking Skritt, the weekly Guild Wars 2 news podcast that is usually weekly, but we are adults. Life happens to us. 4 p.m. Eastern time. Well, thank you, Sauce-Bro. We appreciate you being here. But that is it for us. You all have a wonderful evening, and we will see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Bye.